My husband gave me HIV while living a secret life with men, then cried in court. He lied for years, blamed a transfusion, and begged me not to leave. But clinic records, fake names, and a hidden diagnosis told the truth, right before I had him arrested. Before we continue, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This will greatly help me with promotion. Thank you. Hi, I'm Melissa, 43 now, and 9 years ago I thought my life was over because my husband gave me HIV and lied about it until the truth clawed its way to the surface and burned everything to the ground. What came next was survival. Was fire. Was the beginning of a story I never wanted to live, but one I had to tell. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because I had rescheduled a staff meeting to make time for what I thought was a routine doctor's appointment. I was expecting a gentle lecture about my cholesterol, or maybe low iron. I had my whole afternoon planned: pick up the kids, grab dog food, maybe finally return the library books that had been gathering dust in the passenger seat of my car for 2 weeks. Instead, Dr. Patterson closed the door behind her, sat down across from me, and looked like someone had just kicked her soul out of her chest. She said my name softly. Then, "Melissa, your blood work came back. It's positive. For HIV." I laughed. Like actually laughed. Loud and awkward and way too long for that tiny office. That can't be right. I've been married for 12 years. I haven't slept with anyone but David since I was 21. That's impossible. She let me talk. Let me spiral. Then she showed me the results. Offered to run the test again. They did. Same outcome. I sat in the parking lot for an hour after that, staring at my hands on the steering wheel like they belonged to a stranger. People walked by, drinking coffee, yelling into phones, walking dogs. I hated them for how normal their lives were. When I finally got home, David was in the garage working on his bike. His me time. Every Tuesday. I walked in and said the words flatly. "I'm HIV positive." He dropped his wrench. I will never forget the sound it made hitting the concrete. The way his face strained of blood. "What? How is that even possible?" He looked scared. Genuinely scared. Not guilty. Not evasive. Like he didn't understand either. We got him tested the next day. He was positive too. For 48 hours we were partners in a nightmare. We cried together, planned how we'd tell the kids, how we'd get through this as a team. My mother brought over casserole and comfort. "You're strong," she said. "You'll survive this. Together." Then David came to me with a theory: the blood transfusion. He reminded me of the car accident he'd had 3 years ago, the surgery, the transfusion. "It has to be from that," he said. And God help me, I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But the math never added up. And when the hospital confirmed that every single unit of blood he received had tested negative, I stopped being a wife and started being a detective. And that's when everything I thought I knew about my life, my husband, my marriage, started unraveling like a loose thread on a cheap sweater. I work in forensic accounting. Fraud detection. Money trails. Patterns. I see what's missing, what's out of place, what doesn't add up. It's literally my job. And once I stopped being Melissa the wife and switched to Melissa the investigator, I found the holes in David's story faster than I wanted to. The transfusion lie fell apart first. Then came the records. Credit cards. Mileage logs. Subtle shifts in behavior I'd ignored for over a year because I was too busy being a working mom, because I was tired, because I trusted him. It was the flowers that did it. A charge on our credit card to a boutique florist in a town 30 miles away. David never brought me flowers. Ever. I asked him once early in our marriage and he said he thought it was too cliché. Turns out, cliché wasn't the problem. I was. I dug deeper. Every other Friday for the last year and a half, there was a trail, small charges, extra mileage, missing hours that couldn't be accounted for. I cross-referenced with our phone bills. There was a number. A woman. Amber Richards. A dental hygienist in a nearby town. Blonde. Pretty. The kind of woman who posts gym selfies with quotes about choosing joy. She looked like everything I'm not. I found her Instagram. Her Facebook. And eventually, a photo from 14 months ago. She was eating dinner at a restaurant David had claimed he went to for a work dinner. I zoomed in. Behind her friend's shoulder, there he was. David. Laughing. Smiling. Holding a wine glass like this wasn't the beginning of the end. I made a fake account. Followed her. Watched her. Learned where she went for coffee every morning. And then I showed up. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to see her first. Needed to confirm she was real. That this whole twisted, unraveling story wasn't just a fever dream conjured by betrayal. 12 minutes later, she came out with a latte and a croissant. She had no idea who I was. But I knew everything about her. The appointment came later. Under a fake name. I sat in her chair, and when she leaned over with that little mirror, I looked up and said, "Do you know David Hartley?" Her hand froze midair. From there, the truth cracked open. She said she didn't know he was married. Said he told her his name was Derek. That he was divorced. That he was looking for something real. She cried when I told her the truth. When I told her he was positive. That I was positive. That he had known. "I'm negative," she said. "I got tested 2 months ago." I blinked. "Are you sure?" She nodded, visibly shaking. "I've always been careful about that. Regular testing. Always. But if he's positive, oh my God." She had slept with him 3 weeks ago. After my diagnosis. After he knew. And he hadn't told her. That's when I knew Amber wasn't just collateral damage. She was a victim too. But what didn't make sense, what haunted me, was this. If David didn't get HIV from Amber, then who the hell did he get it from? The missing time. That's what kept bugging me. David's affair with Amber had started around 18 months ago. I knew that now. Vanessa, the other woman he'd seen 3 years ago under the name Derek Morrison, she'd cut him off right before the car accident. She'd moved across the country to escape the fallout of finding out she was the other woman. So there was a year. A gap. A weird, clean space in the timeline where nothing made sense. No unusual credit card charges. No hotel stays. No restaurant slips. David was smart, or he'd learned from his mistakes. But he wasn't careful enough. Not with everything. Buried in 3 years of credit card statements was a $50 recurring charge labeled Wellness Health Partners. Every single month for 14 months straight. I googled it. A private sexual health clinic downtown. Specializing in HIV care, PrEP, PEP, STI testing. My heart dropped into my stomach. I called. Asked what kind of clinic they were. The receptionist was polite. Professional. "We provide discreet care for individuals in the LGBTQ+ community and others seeking privacy for sexual health needs." It felt like the room tilted under my feet. I didn't say anything to David. I went straight to my divorce lawyer, Patricia. Told her everything. Showed her the records, the charges, the mounting evidence. "I need access to his medical history," I said. She warned me it'd be hard. That in most states, you can't force someone to disclose unless it's life-threatening or legally relevant. "It is life-threatening," I snapped. "He infected me." It took her 2 weeks. And when she called me, she said, "Melissa, you should sit down." The records told the whole story. David had tested positive for HIV 3 years ago, before the accident. Before Amber. Before he ever told me. He'd started treatment immediately. Antiretrovirals. Regular counseling. Routine checkups. And then, nothing. No follow-ups after 14 months. He'd stopped going. Stopped treatment. But the part that made me feel like I was going to throw up. The notes from the counselor. Dozens of them. Patient continues to refuse disclosure to wife. Warned about the risks of unprotected sex with seronegative partner. Acknowledges understanding of legal obligations. States, "I'll handle it." Counselor expresses concern for patient's emotional state and denial. Patient claims, if I tell her, she'll leave me. I can't lose my family. He'd known. For 3 years. And instead of telling me, instead of protecting me, instead of taking responsibility, he looked me in the eye, made love to me, had dinner with me, held our kids, and lied. Deliberately. Repeatedly. With full knowledge of what he was doing. The blood transfusion lie wasn't just desperate, it was strategic. It was planned. He'd rather invent a medical miracle than admit what he'd done. And then it got worse. Because that clinic? It wasn't just any clinic. It specialized in treating men who have anonymous sexual encounters with other men. Men like David. Men like my husband. I sat on the floor of my bedroom for a long time after Patricia told me. Not the bed. Not a chair. The floor. Because that's where you go when the weight of your life suddenly becomes too heavy for upright positions. The clinic, the records, the signed disclosures, the stop treatments, the counselor's notes, all of it whirled in my head like a tornado made of betrayal. David wasn't just cheating. He wasn't just reckless. He had been leading a double life. And not with women. Not with Amber. Not with Vanessa. Not even with some cliché secretary at the office. With men. Anonymous ones. Enough that he got HIV. Enough that he got treatment. And then chose to stop it. Chose to keep sleeping with me. Unprotected. With lies so clean they felt rehearsed. The next day, I met with the prosecutor Patricia recommended, a woman named Diana Foster. She specialized in HIV-related exposure cases. These are rare, she said, flipping through the thick folder of documents. Not because it doesn't happen, but because people don't have the proof. But you have the entire story in hard copy. I want to press charges, I said, my voice flat. I want him held accountable. She nodded. He's legally obligated to disclose. He signed acknowledgement forms. We have witness statements, his treatment history, the sexual health counseling. If we can prove he exposed you knowingly, we can charge him with felony reckless endangerment, and possibly aggravated assault. We built the case. Every appointment. Every receipt. Every email. Every night he came home and touched me knowing what was in his blood. Then came the conversation I had been dreading. I met David at a neutral spot, a soulless little cafe by the courthouse, the kind with burned coffee and plastic chairs. He looked tired. Hollow. Worn down like he was being devoured by the truth I'd already uncovered. I slid the folder across the table. I know, I said simply. He didn't even open it. Melissa. You knew you were HIV positive 3 years ago. You went to the clinic. You got treatment. You stopped treatment. And you never told me. He stared down at his hands. I was ashamed. No. You were a coward. I didn't want to lose you. Or the kids. Or my life. You didn't want to lose the illusion of your life. You were willing to gamble my health so you could keep pretending. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. You infected me. You could have infected Amber. Vanessa. God knows who else. He swallowed. It wasn't just about the sex, he said quietly. I was confused. I still am. No, David. You're not confused. You're dangerous. And now the state of California is going to explain that to you, because I'm pressing charges. His head snapped up. You can't be serious. I am. And I have the receipts. Literally. He stood up, knocking over his chair. I'll lose everything. You already did. You just didn't notice. He left the cafe in a blur of denial and panic. I sat there long after he was gone, drinking lukewarm coffee and feeling nothing. No victory. No satisfaction. Just clarity. For the first time in years, I saw my life clearly. The lies, the betrayal, the manipulation, it wasn't foggy anymore. He had made his choices. And now I was making mine. David was arrested 2 weeks later. I was in the kitchen making school lunches when I got the call from Diana. He's in custody, she said. We'll begin pretrial motions soon. I'll keep you updated. I hung up and stared at the peanut butter on the knife like it might explain something about the universe. It didn't. The kids were still brushing their teeth upstairs. The dogs still needed walking. The house didn't shake or crumble or mark the moment with some grand announcement. Just one life-shattering thing tucked between Ziploc bags and string cheese. That's how most of it happened. Quietly. Without fanfare. Amber testified first during the hearings. She was brave. Shaking but brave. She told the court David never disclosed his status, that she found out only after I confronted her. Her doctor had confirmed she should have tested positive, given the length of their relationship and their frequency of unprotected sex. But somehow she hadn't. Vanessa couldn't attend in person, too far, too expensive, but she submitted a written statement. She described the fake name, the lies, the emotional wreckage that led her to abandon her entire life and move across the country. "I was lucky," she wrote. "But he made me live in fear for years. I get tested every 3 months like it's a religion. Every sore throat, every rash, every headache, I panic. He did that to me. He should pay for it. And then it was my turn. I sat in the courtroom and told them everything. From the moment Dr. Patterson gave me the news, to the spreadsheet of credit card charges, to the Wellness Health Partners bill that cracked the case wide open. I told them about the documents he signed, the treatments he stopped, the lies he told with a straight face and warm hands. I told them how I used to think marriage was about knowing someone so completely that their silence still made sense. And how wrong I was. David's defense tried to claim he hadn't known. That the clinic misinformed him. That he thought the first test was wrong. That maybe I had been the one who'd infected him. The jury didn't buy it. The signed disclosures. The records. The counseling notes. The timing. It all painted a picture of a man who knew exactly what he was doing and hoped he could outpace the consequences. He couldn't. He was found guilty on all counts: criminal transmission of HIV, reckless endangerment, and intentional failure to disclose. At sentencing, he cried. Told the judge he was sorry. That he'd lost everything. The judge didn't flinch. "You were given every opportunity to do the right thing," she said. "You had medical care, counseling, support. You chose deception. You exposed your wife and others to a deadly virus not once, but repeatedly. And when confronted, you lied again. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. And now, you'll face the consequences. 3 years in prison. Registered as a sex offender. Mandatory treatment and disclosure therapy for the rest of his life." He stared at me as they led him away. I didn't look back. In the months after the trial, my world stayed quiet, but never still. There's this myth that once justice is served, things return to normal. But they don't. There's no rewind button for betrayal. No clean reset. David was gone. In prison. No longer a threat. And yet, I woke up every morning still holding the weight of it all in my chest like a second set of lungs. My diagnosis hadn't changed. My reality hadn't changed. But something in me had. I started writing. At first it was just notes to myself. Fragments of memory. Pieces of pain I couldn't say out loud. Then came a blog. I called it Undetectable Truth. It was anonymous at first, just a place to unpack everything. I never planned for people to read it. But people did. Emails started trickling in. Then pouring. Other women. Other men. Other people who'd been lied to, infected, left with a diagnosis and no answers. Some were just looking for a witness. Others were begging for help. "What do I do? How do I prove it? How did you stay sane?" I answered every single message. I gave them checklists. Advice. Legal options. Emotional survival tips. I became something I never intended to be, an advocate. 6 months after the verdict, a message came through that changed everything. A man named Marcus. He'd read my blog. He'd been infected by a partner a decade ago. His case had never made it to trial. Too little proof, too many loopholes. But he'd rebuilt too. We started writing back and forth. Just words. Stories. No expectations. He lived 3 states away, but it didn't matter. There was no pretense. No small talk. Just 2 people who understood each other's invisible weight. We exchanged photos after a few weeks. He had kind eyes and a quiet smile. Wrote like he was talking just to me. We spoke on the phone. We video chatted. We cried. We laughed, God, we laughed. 3 months later, we met in person. Neutral ground. A hotel lobby in Portland. I wore my favorite scarf and nearly passed out from nerves. But when I saw him, when he stood up and smiled, I exhaled for the first time in a year. "Hi," he said. "Hi," I whispered back. He was gentle. Not just in touch, but in presence. The way he listened. The way he let silence breathe instead of filling it with noise. We didn't rush. Months of cautious steps. He met the kids after 6 months. Emma adored him. Jake was suspicious. Protective. Wary. But Marcus didn't try to win them over. He showed up. Helped with homework. Came to basketball games. Cooked dinner when I was too tired. Let them take their time. One night, I came downstairs and found him and Jake sitting on the couch watching Mythbusters. No conversation. Just existing in the same room. Comfortable. That's when I knew. We were going to be okay. Marcus moved in after a year. We didn't make a big deal of it. Just slowly merged our lives. 2 toothbrushes in the cup. His records in my cabinet. His shoes beside mine. We still took our meds every day. Still got tested. Still carried our histories in our blood, but we carried them together. The blog grew. So did the audience. So did the impact. We started speaking at conferences. Telling our stories. Educating medical students, lawyers, therapists. We lobbied for stricter laws. Better protection for victims. Easier prosecution for non-disclosure cases. It didn't erase what had happened. But it gave it purpose. I stopped asking why me. And started asking how can I help someone else survive this too? Marcus proposed 2 years after we met. It was quiet. Just us, on the back porch, drinking tea under the string lights he'd hung the week before. He didn't make a speech. Didn't drop to one knee. He just looked at me and said, "I'd like to spend the rest of my life making you feel safe." I didn't cry. I smiled. A real smile. The kind that felt earned. "Yes," I said. "You already do." We got married the following spring. Small ceremony. Just the kids, a few close friends, and a judge who barely held it together when Jake gave a speech about second chances. Marcus cried. I did too. But not out of grief. These were the tears of someone who'd rebuilt herself from ashes and finally got to stand in the sun again. We didn't do a big honeymoon. Instead, we took a road trip with the kids. 4 states. Bad motel coffee. A ridiculous number of gas station snacks. I've never laughed so hard in my life. And I think that's what healing really looked like, not some grand gesture. Just us, singing badly to the radio with the windows down, chasing nothing but miles and laughter. The blog became a nonprofit. We called it Undetectable Truth Network. It provides legal resources, therapy referrals, community support, even financial aid for people trying to escape abusive relationships tied to medical betrayal. I still get messages. Sometimes dozens a week. From men, women, teens, even doctors who read our story and changed how they approach patients. Some days I get overwhelmed. The weight of other people's trauma is heavy. But then I get something like this. "Your story saved my life." Or, "Because of you, I got tested. And now I'm on treatment and alive." That makes it worth it. David got out of prison after serving 2 years. I didn't go to the hearing. Didn't read the letter he sent. I have no curiosity left for him. No hate either. He just doesn't live in my world anymore. Emma's in college now, studying nursing. Says she wants to work in infectious disease and prevention. Says I'm the reason she chose that path. Jake still won't speak to David. Changed his last name to mine on his 18th birthday. Sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if none of this happened. But that's a fantasy. The truth is, this story made me. It forced me to become the strongest, fiercest version of myself. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And in the end, that version of me was the one I was always meant to be. Survivor. Advocate. Mother. Wife. Truth teller. This isn't the story I would have chosen. But it's mine. And I'm proud of how it ends.